Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, at home, in your office. We are going to have an interesting discussion today about patch management technology for operating systems. Practically, this is a very important topic because it deals with maintaining an industrial control system over long time. We all know these systems are working 20 years, 30, 40 years, so correctly done maintenance is very, very important. Before we actually go to this discussion, for those who may not know me, are new to to the activity which I'm conducting for many years, my name is Daniel Ehrenreich. I am based in Israel. I have over 45 years of experience in the field of electronics and industrial control systems and development and so on. During the past 12 years, 13 years since the Stuxnet, I am dedicating my time and my efforts to industrial cybersecurity. And in the past 8 years, I'm a self-employed consultant, lecturer. I'm organizing conferences, keynote speaker in conferences. Many of you may follow the many papers, over 100 papers, which I published during the past years. And actually, my activity today is very much dedicated to help people like you, to become expert in the field of industrial cybersecurity. Some of you may not know, but there are just few experts, not few, but worldwide, probably many thousands, but it's not a big number compared to number of cybersecurity experts in the area of IT systems. So follow my activity and you will learn important topics related to this fascinating expertise. Before we actually going to discuss the main topic, which will refer to correctly maintaining industrial cybersecurity systems, industrial control systems, I would like to remind all of us about the major difference between the IT systems, which are designed, deployed, tested to assure confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the famous CIA. When we speak about industrial control systems, please do not follow those people who are rotating the CIA letters, because it is not the best way to do that. Related to industrial control systems, we always say that these systems are designed, deployed, tested to assure operating safety, reliability, and availability. So you can already see the major difference. Also, I would like to say something which you probably heard me many times to saying that, and it refers to a term which many people unfortunately are using, called IT-OT convergence. I'm kindly asking you not to use this term, because that term was never defined and never accepted by experts. IT and OT systems must be separately designed, separately deployed, separately tested for performance. Once these two systems are already working perfectly, you can securely interconnect between them, and that secure connection can be done via a data diode. It can be done through a DMZ, through a jump host server, to a next generation firewall, and practically there are several quite secure solutions, so they can be securely interconnected but never be built as converged network. So please adhere to this principle, because people will hear you to say that, they will immediately appreciate that you are an expert. If you talk about convergent, many people already know that this is incorrect, and they may not appreciate what you will say later. So let's go to another very important topic, and we are still in the introduction phase to this topic of dealing with patching of industrial control and OT systems. I would like to remind all of us, very important topic, that practically there are only 3 attack vectors which are referring or may refer to industrial control systems, operation technology. And let's talk about it. On the right side, you already see the SRA triad, which is always the goal, not CIA, not AIC, not IAC, SRA. And we are talking about internally generated attack, like what happened in the Stuxnet attack, that somebody penetrate to your facility, not your, but a facility, insert a malvertised computer or a malvertised USB device, and actually this will generate an attack. Then we start talking about the externally generated attack, like what happened in Ukraine in 2015. That it started obviously with social engineering. Somebody sent an Excel file, and an authorized person opened it, and then the malware started to operate. At the end of this process, 250,000 people were out of power for 6 hours. So externally generated attack through the IT network, and so nobody need to penetrate to the facility, but doing it remotely from anywhere around the world. Finally, I would like to talk about the supply chain related attack. Supply chain, this is the most complicated attack vector, because it may happen due to a use of a malvertised software which you downloaded. It can happen because you bought a controller, or you bought from someone a computer and the malware was already inside. Or practically, even if you are employing an outsourced technical support, it may also create a cyber attack, because the service person who is coming to your facility with his own computer may connect his computer directly to your network and actually infect your system. So supply chain related attack is very important. Now I would like to introduce you to a definition of a ICS OT related attack. I want to say it very clearly. This is not an official definition. This definition was until now not accepted by any organization, but I would like you to know this definition because it's always better to have some kind of definition than no definition. So I would like to read it carefully. What is a ICS OT directed attack? And we are talking about any detected and confirmed internal or external or supply chain initiated electronic or physical action conducted by an adversary or an unauthorized action which is aimed to generate a direct or an indirect severe impact, and now listen to the important part, on the physical process and intended to threaten the operating safety reliability at the industrial facility. What I'm trying to say here, that we are not referring to a broad range of IT directed attack which are harming the billing system, which are harming the HR system. I'm not saying that it is absolutely one is correct, another one is incorrect. Just I want to show you this topic so you can learn from it. I would like to introduce you to this slide, which actually help us to segment the different types of incidents. Let's not call it attack, let's call it an incident. And these incidents start with some kind of vulnerability. So let's go from the left to the right. There can be an incident which affect only the IT zone, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the OT. It may generate loss of money, data leakage on encryption of database. I'm not saying that for whatever reason someone might not decide to shut down the OT operation like it happened in the Colonia pipeline, but all agree that this type of attack is purely IT related. So remember that. Nothing, no impact on direct or indirect impact on the OT system. The second option from left to right is affecting the IT zone but has an indirect impact on the OT zone. What does it mean? For example, if your billing computer is not working, your raw material ordering system is not working, for any other reason which prevent you to continue operating the industrial plant, it's prevent you because you have no raw material, maybe for whatever reason you have no water in the facility because the IT system shut down the billing and the organization didn't pay for water. I bring you all kind of strange examples, but the focus is on the indirect impact on the OT zone. The next possibility is a possibility that the incident which start in the IT zone through social engineering is spreading to the OT zone, spreading meaning that the attack process is compromising the barrier between the IT and the OT, and finally, the malware will penetrate, like it happened in Ukraine in 2015. It will penetrate to the OT zone and cause a operation outage, damage, or even risk to lives. Finally, I would like to talk about the directly internally affecting the OT zone, like what happened in the Stuxnet, that it was an internally generated attack. And obviously there was an operation outage and damage to machines at this attack. So now I show you this picture, which is help you, at least you hear about an attack or an incident somewhere, or you read somewhere about the incident, and now you can somehow understand to which category that incident is referring to. Only then we can make a progress. Furthermore, I just want to show you this well-known slide, which is showing on the left side the internal attack and on the right side the external attacker, so you can see. And why this slide is important? Because there is always a crown jewel, a targeted PLC. Only one or one targeted PLC, which if the attacker is reaching, then they can cause damage, a outage, and risk to life. So always remember that this is PLC is the crown jewel. It must be strongly protected to make sure nobody will manipulate that PLC. Just a brief look at the 62443 standard. And when we are talking about patching, we don't need to invent anything. It's written. It's in the section 2.3 defined. Yes, I'm not saying it is perfect. I'm not saying it is perfect, but at least we have a document that we can refer to that and to see what is patching management all about. I have seen one of the guys who wrote in the group, patching, and I called that guy, please don't say that, because patching, as I will explain later, is not the right approach to protecting industrial cybersecurity, not the right approach. And furthermore, I can also say that this approach might cause homemade risks. If you are doing patching incorrectly, and there was a paper which was published by one of the colleagues during this week, I didn't see it very clearly mentioning in the chart, patching chart, that the first thing is to confirm that patching will not cause a risk to the system. So as I mentioned, it is based on the 62443 standards, section 2.3. I pulled out from the standard several topics, a little bit shortened the sentences, so we all know what is the meaning of the patching, not just say patching, but what is the meaning of patching for industrial control systems. So I want to encourage yourself to read it. Make sure that we have a common understanding of what is patching all about. And now look at this picture. This picture is the basics for protecting industrial plants. So you see that we are not talking here about patching, we are talking about layered defense. And remember, layered defense is the process to success. And you know the sentence in the bottom, there is no single cyber defense measure, no silver bullet, as we know, that can protect any industrial operation from cyber attack. So if you want to protect your facility, look at these 4 layers of protection. It's like in the army, in the military, we have layers of defense that we are deploying because there is no one single defense. So we talk about physical security, perimeter security at the network, endpoint devices, network security in the industrial zone, and you see in the center the most critical, protecting the RTUs, PLCs, IEDs, and the sensors. Why? Because in the center we have the crown jewel. We need to protect the crown jewel. And if you want to spend money on an expensive PLC, don't spend on all the PLC in the facility. Just look at the crown jewel PLC and spend your resources there. Now we are going to have to the core of our discussion. Are vulnerability detection actions critical? I know many companies spending huge amount of efforts and resources to detect vulnerabilities. And I'm not saying it is wrong. It helps to achieve stronger safety and reliability. And it may also help you to get budget to do retrofit. Okay? But don't consider vulnerability detection as the most important action. Why? I want to ask a very simple question. How many of the hundreds of PLC vulnerabilities which were detected by great organizations and talented engineers, how many were exploited? Not too many. Not too many, because fact of life is that in past 12 years, the number of attacks on industrial facilities were just a two-digit number. I don't want to say 20 or 30 or 50 or 90, but a two-digit number. But what is more important? Training of people. Why training of people is more critical? Because what we are doing today is a 1 hour training and you learn, and that's important. Segregation, according to the 62443 standard, is number one requirement. And you all know my opinion about the IT-OT convergence. Please never use that term. Never ever use that term. IT and OT systems must be separately designed, separately deployed, separately tested for performance. When they are working nicely and you are satisfied, you can securely connect it. You can build a bridge across the river securely, but never build these two networks as converge. So the term IT-OT convergence, in my view, should be erased from the dictionary. Physical and perimeter protection as a precondition to cybersecurity, we know that. Hardening. Perform hardening. All computers, PLCs, whatever you can do, hardening is mandatory. Why? Because we are buying commercial off-the-shelf products. We are buying the same computer as our children are using at home. The same computer. Okay, so to industrial facility, we must perform hardening. Strong authentication is critical. Encryption of communication when we are communicating with remote sites is very critical. Purchasing of appliances and components in original packages, those which were never opened before you get it, is very critical. We talk about then about the number of the attacks. We already discussed them, that only a small number of attacks. And now we just pay attention to the 62443 standard, which is the only internationally accepted document for protecting industrial facilities. Someone has the microphone open, so please put to mute. And what we are talking about, section 3.3, pay attention to security. Section 3.2, conduct vulnerability assessment. 4.1, 4.2, purchase components from vendors who are paying attention to cybersecurity, and also comply with the ask your contractors to comply. What about patching? What about patching? You can see we discussed so many things, and we didn't talk about patching. Why? Because it's defined in section 2.3. Conduct rarely and subject to assurance of the SRA. I want to say it very clearly. The reason that we are not performing patching very frequently, because it will take us a long time to confirm that changing of the software will not create a risk to operation safety and reliability. So those people who are talking about patching, please tell them wrong. First of all, we need to receive the approved patch, test it on a digital twin to make sure it will not cause cybersecurity risk, and only then you can deploy that. Finally, I would like to finish with the same slide which I always use. Pay attention to this important topic. Deal with vendors who take it seriously. Never compromise on cybersecurity risk, and be always ready for surprises and challenges. So I believe this was my 15-minute introduction, and now we can continue with more presentations, and then we will have a nice debate.
Thank you, Daniel. John.
Yeah. Okay, can I share my screen? John, would you like to share and just drive through me this presentation? I can. Sorry. Still
John,
not.
we cannot see.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Daniel. It was fantastic and wonderful. Very experienced eyesight, I would say that. Thank you so much. I would like to touch upon, my presentation is having only 2 slides, this one and next one finished. Okay, I don't have very elaborated slides like Daniel, but yes, I would like to touch upon some practical aspects which I faced during my tenure as pen test lab manager, handling 35 pen testers and tested approximately 300 ICS devices, including safety PLC, Triton, yeah, TriStation, you might be knowing that. Yeah, it came for testing after the incident of Triton. Just a request to mute. Somebody has unmuted. Yeah, so then I migrated myself to the OEM, who is managing a cloud-based solution for condition monitoring, which is to be integrated with energy customers. Mind it, it's energy. It is not manufacturing, it is not oil and gas, it is energy. Very strictly monitored by NERC, North America, as well as in Europe. Then it happened that I migrated myself to manufacturing company, presently SKF, where I'm in charge of handling 98 factories for OT security, and right from budget to people to all the programs like patch management program is in my basket. Pretty complex. So I'll touch upon, with this background, I'll touch upon few practical aspects. First practical aspect I would like to take is from the viewpoint of OEMs or suppliers. See, when they're making a product, there is always, many of you are working with OEMs, there is always a balance between the functionality, the sales, which means how much demand, accordingly the investment in the product, as well as accordingly the security features are set. Now, when I'm saying that security features are set, I'm taking the examples of one of the cloud-based, as I mentioned, condition monitoring system. The major challenge in that product which we faced is an update system. How should we update this system? Because now we are saying that it's an on-prem device, on-prem solution, and you know the electricity domain is having a very, very strict rules. They are not willing to take any of the risks, even if it is medium risk. Absolutely no, thank you so much. Because now it is, the target is not a financial, or target is not some ransomware, it is geopolitical. When I say geopolitical, there is a humongous amount of money invested in driving your program for cyber weapons and projecting them by government-backed agencies, three-lettered agencies. You can't protect them, you protect yourself against them. You need to have a really large amount of strategy as well as investment to protect against such a kind of attack, which we are seeing in today's scenario, maybe Ukraine or US or China trade war or many other things, or Lazarus from North Korea, something like that. Now, when you say that, the update system in the cloud application, when we started all the scenarios combined, the budget for this only update system, which is very, very secure update system, I would say that, has crossed the complete budget of the product. I'm just talking about update. By preserving your integrity, I'm using PKI, digital certificate, signing everything, and then each certificate is costing me $6. Yeah, I'm bringing from the perspective purely from the monetary perspective, not from the technical perspectives, to enlighten that how this is going to affect us. Now that's where the decision of the management came that, okay, fine, we'll not do this much of security. Okay, there's a conflict of me handling the security in charge and answerable to the customer that how this has to be handled, and if something goes wrong, my neck will be cut. And there is a management telling that we don't have budget for this. And there's the third angle is customer telling that we have a nurse requirement. So what is that? What is the optimal solution? Then for the time being, it was discussed, okay, fine, there is a shared responsibility. We will shift this ball to customer's court after some time. That means we will hand over the patch till this level, and then it's the customer's program which has to drive the patching. I'll not I'll not conclude with the solution that what is the correct or what is wrong in that. There is nothing correct, right, or wrong in this one. That it is based on the contextual or situation based, but it should be common sense based, I would say that. And then it should be taken care with this. This is one angle from the OEM who is supplying. That means you may trust your OEM, but not fully, I would say that. Yeah. Another example, just OEM from the perspective offensive, where I was lab manager and testing the updates. When we asked that how this system get updated, they tell that, okay, fine, we ship the update in a particular way. Let us say that out of band method, we ship the update. We took that update, modified it, uploaded it. It crashed the device. It's IP67 certified switch, industrial switch with M12 connectors to connect sensors and actuators and the machines. It is having, yeah. It crashed so badly. There was no hard reboot. There was no power cycle reboot. Nothing. So we sent this device back to Germany for the OEM. Yeah. So it has been destroyed. I would say it has been burned out, just by uploading a update with our malicious content or something like that. However, now if you see, now when we say patch management, there is one sentence which Daniel has mentioned, which I would like to little bit ask his permission to let me disagree on that. The OT device, the ICS devices like PLCs, yeah, for me, the IT-OT convergence is how much IT is getting pushed into these devices to make it modern and more interoperable. Yeah, which means you see when you purchase a PLC with one RJ45 is less costlier than the PLC with 4 RJ45 and enabled with many of the protocols on that. Which means there's a lot of IT functionality. There is a web server. If there is a web server facility, it is costlier. If there is not, it's costlier. If there is telnet, if there is FTP, if many of the HTTPS connectivities stack is available in this in its communication stack, it is more costly. Which means IT is IT schema is getting pushed into these devices. Now, why it is very important from the offensive perspective is, I have written in the chat group that I could break safety PLC using Burp Suite. Burp Suite is, all of you know that we use it for web pen testing. I use the same to test the web interface on this safety PLC, a flagship product. And it is not a direct, of course, it took some time, but yes, the payload was very small, and then how it got bricked, which means I used an IT pen test tool to use to create a payload and pushed into the IT protocol using an IT communication stack onto the OT device. Yeah. So this is where you need to be really conscious of what your devices are made of. How much of your OT layers are there, and upon that, how much of IT layers are stacked upon, and how they can be affected. Patch management generally goes into this deep. Generally, it is not practical to go in this deep from the asset owner perspective. So let me come from the asset owner perspective. Now I keep the asset owner as well as system integrator into one basket. Yeah. So when I say asset owner, present in a scenario, 98 factories, and the cultures are different from in a country. The culture is different from factory to factory. I have written a blog yesterday, and maybe John, you just be on the first slide. I will come to that. This one, just be on the first slide, maybe. Yeah, thank you so much. So the culture is different, and that's where the asset inventory becomes very important. I have written a blog on this one, and I'm focusing specifically on the asset inventory. If you are not aware of asset inventory, then there is no point in talking about patch management, because you're not even in square zero, I would say that. Yeah. Once you have a very mature patch management, once you have very mature asset inventory management, then you can include all the parties, IT, your own IT, your vendor, the mechanism to communicate to your vendor, how they will inform you that there is a vulnerability. Okay, once they inform the vulnerability, definitely the chances are very less that they will give you patch immediately. Yeah, they will take some time, maybe 6 months. Yeah, have an experience of that. They will first discuss that whether the vulnerability is actually vulnerability or not. They will justify that it's not a vulnerability. Then they will fight with the disclosure. Then they will come to the conclusion. In the meantime, this picture becomes valid, where your ISIS community actions will take 200 days, for example. And when the vulnerability is disclosed, it's disclosed in public. That's where the black hats will start their action. Specifically, if you are a target of geopolitical scenario, the life will be difficult. But if you are a player who is not a geopolitical target, then yes, you still have a little bit of time. But anyways, the hackers will start either studying that vulnerability and start reverse engineering the patch if it is available. That's where they get an edge. Even if the patch is available, there are so many reasons why you will not be able to patch, as Daniel mentioned very rightly. I will not go again into those points. And those reasons I have mentioned in my blog. And that's why it's not practical to push the patch to the last mile or crown jewel, even if you know that it's a very critical system, and this one, and you know that it has to be patched by yesterday, you will not be able to. I believe everybody has gone through Log4j. Yeah? We have seen the Log4j getting disclosed on the Friday evening. That is Christmas time. People were almost on holiday, and then there is a explosion of Log4j. The patch was released. Anyways, we could gather the emergency team and release upload the patch. Now the good news. Good news is the patch which was released having a CVSS 10. That means it also can be remotely exposed. That means patch itself is a vulnerability. It was a very realistic scenario. Log4j is a very interesting case, because again we can see two perspectives. One is purely from the patch management, and again from the perspective of OEM. So from the perspective of patch management, it is very difficult to see your own asset inventory, because now Log4j is going into multiple nested dependencies. It is not a directly DLL supporting certain things. There will be nested dependencies, and then you will hit the log4j. That's where the patch has come. Now, when you say the OEM perspective, even OEMs are in the same case, because I have seen in my experience, even OEMs don't know how much of log4j they are using in their own products, because now they are depending on their subcontractors. When they ask their subcontractors are answering that we are using open source, and they don't know that how much log4j is getting involved. So it becomes very impractical situation. Now, third aspect, two aspects I have covered. Third aspect is offensive security. This is where I have touched upon this slide, this particular slide. And if you are a geopolitical strategy, if you are an operator of electricity grids, if you are oil and gas, which is contributing to the survival of the nation, or if you are a military establishment for any manufacturing, you need to have a multi-pronged strategy. This is where I want to come into the picture. Maybe next slide. So next slide, please. Thank you so much. Yeah. So this is a cycle of patching, information gathering. Then we will monitor, evaluate whether the patching is is applicable or not to us. Then we test the patch, which is a very interesting word. We test the patch, which I don't believe it's a testing. In my opinion, testing is just an antivirus scanning and then push it. No, and most of the times, as Daniel mentioned, the reliability was never tested. The applicability was also not tested in most of the cases. They just got the patch, and they just want to tick, yes, my Jira is green, and I want to move ahead. Patch deployment, yes, it is deployed, and if something crashes, then of course there is an IT department to blame or somebody else to blame. So there is not a very clear-cut, demarked roles and responsibilities and accountability, which is there, which is I'm facing today in my role. Having a very clear-cut roles and responsibilities and training your people for those roles and responsibilities is also a very big challenge. Remember this: if it is a secondary job, it will be done in the secondary quality. Yeah, it will not. If it is not a primary job, it is not going to be taken as a primary interest. If there is a person who is actually an operator of some machinery and he's given an additional job of patch deployment, he will always do it in a secondary quality, not as a primary quality. So it's also an important that how will you compensate him for this particular, so that he will take. So it's going a little bit out of the technical into the into people administration, as well as your how you maintain your processes. Verification reporting, how it went through, whether the system has crashed or how the system is holding up, whether it's verified, and then and the loop is closed, and then it is repeated. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share, yeah, I think that's all. These are some of the practical examples I could gather upon. Yeah, thank you so much.
Just Prashant, we would like to have your detailed session on this.
Of course, definitely.
Now, we would like to have the detailed session of each one of you on whatever the slide you are presenting. We just wanted to know the perspective, and based on that, we would like to have a detailed session, so that that session will be entirely yours, and then you can give some, let's say, demo of those, that how do you do it, okay, if it is possible. So that would be great for all of us.
We'll discuss. Yeah, we'll see that how the timeline holds. Yeah.
But it was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks, Prashant. Thanks for the slides. Actually, like Daniel and your slide, most of the slides covered my slides as well, but I will touch upon something because, as you said, I work with OEMs, and I am presently in the end user side, so as asset owner, so we know what are the practical difficulties which we are facing whenever we are talking about the patching. Like as you rightly said, pointed out, the patching is like example when dedicated team is there, the way the handling is totally different, because when you get the things in place, first they will review the documentation perspective and all those things. So I will touch upon that when we are going for it. When we talk about ICS updates and patches, as everybody knows, because all are running with workstation servers, then we have few Linux based machines, and we have VMware and switches, routers, firewalls. All these are running with some kind of background. You can see there are some firmwares which are running on it, and the OEMs might have released based on their sales and target and all those things. They might have released at the time. They might have checked only from the availability perspective. They don't think too much about the security perspective. Then after the release, they came to know that there are some flaws. So like patches means always don't think that only it is related to security. So there are areas where there is a problem with, because they are working on so many things, they break something with respect to functionality as well. So we have to keep it in mind that there are sometimes they will come up the patches for even for the normal, whatever the intent of the product itself, it might work in one area and it is not working in other area. That is the thing. So many companies don't update their ICS system, because the main reason is because everybody is worried about their availability, and it may be working, because most of the time it happens in the industries that it was not working. So when people discuss, yeah, after patching, it was not working. That was the case most of the time you used to hear, yeah, previously it was not working. It was not working after the patch. That was the case most of the time. Even the operators and people who were within the team, like security team and DCS team, used to debate always that it was working fine and it was not working after that. So concerned with the process stability after the patching, and most of the time the problem is the systems are interconnected. When we talk about systems are interconnected, maybe you can consider there are multiple vendors are at site. Maybe they have DCS vendors, they have PLC vendors are in place, they have different OEMs are in place like Honeywell, GE, Siemens, and all those things. But there are interdependency between the systems as well. Like example, if you are updating the patches on one, it may have an impact on the other system as well. So we have to be careful when we are doing it as well. And also one more thing has to be considered, as Daniel pointed out, we cannot exactly replicate complete test environment into the live plants, because example, the plants are running with various things. We cannot duplicate the systems in it. So that was the one of the problem as well. And adequate testing is always going to be a problem, because if you see some of the vendors, they used to tell, yeah, it was tested and it was released for installing the patches, but they never ever replicate your live site scenarios. They might be tested with their basic functionality. Like example, if it is one DCS, or they might have connected to one controllers and simply check that install the patches. Yeah, patch is working fine. Okay, give it to the vendor, give it to the asset owners. Then once you install at site, maybe it might have, after reboot, it will be blue screen also. Sometimes this has happened as well in many cases. So always when you are doing, please work with your vendors when it comes to patching. And also it doesn't mean that because every organization is following as pointed out, following different kind of a patch management practice as well, because maybe it might be a requirement of your local government. Like example, if it is in different places, there is no requirement, or they hadn't followed those philosophies. But in some cases, you have to abide with the local government policies and rules. If you are following, say like we are following ICT Qatar, so we have to abide with that, because that we are saying that we are abide with that. That is also one thing. And also work with your control system vendors and operation management when you are planning and implementing as well. Yeah. When you are talking about the patch, always your partnership vendors is mostly required, because you will go back to the vendors only after you hit the problem. You go back to the vendor saying that, yeah, we did this and the functionality was not working. And also they are the experts of the products as well. So how the system is designed and it has to be supposed to work. So they know the roadmaps as well. Like example, they will be saying, yeah, we are going to, this product is obsolete on so and so day for XYZ reason, and there will be new products which is going to come. So those are the areas which they are strong. And also possibly implement and possibly design their protocols, product use, because they are the one who design the products. So they know their protocols, how it works. Example, if you are going to install a patch and it is going to impact a specific registry, they know that if there is going to be registry impact and it is going to have an impact on the OPC communication on all those areas. So ICS vendors are, as I mentioned, they are the expert of the products. So they will be providing the security updates and patches. They will be, because most of the time, if you notice, like example, G, Siemens, Hoover, maybe, they will be there will be a delay of releasing the patches because Microsoft releases the patches every second week Tuesday. But after that, the OEMs will take some time to test the patches because they are also not able to test 100%, but still they are trying to do some kind of a random test and give it to the asset owners for implementing it. And also they know how to apply, which patches are safe to apply on the host, on the connected system as well. And also always give product specific training and services around patching, because this is the areas, because most of the times people get ignored or they don't see much, because example, when they say vulnerability is released, even people doesn't know where to start. Example, whether it is affected or not, they don't have those kind of information as well. So that's why the problem starts. So you provide as much as a training, whoever is going to do the patches, this guy should know extensively related to ICS protocols and how it functions. Example, if I am going to have an impact, or if I'm going to install on the standby units, what are the precautions I am going to take? So those kind of trainings has to be provided. And always we have to rely on security advisories and reporting services as well. John, can you go to next page? Yeah, this is the DHS suggested patch decision tree. As previously Daniel also mentioned, when you have anything, you are going to start from here. Identify the vulnerabilities and available patches. You are going to identify the vulnerabilities, whether it has impact on the ICS system. If there is going to be impact, then we have to see whether is there, because most of the time the patches are not available immediately. As soon as, because vulnerability, they will be keep on releasing it. There is immediately patches will not be available. Then in some cases, the OEMs come up with saying that there are some workarounds available. Then we have to evaluate whether we can do the workaround during the normal routine schedule patch, then document the patch and continue the operation. Example, in case if there is a no workaround, then we will be following these patterns. Like we have to do the complete risk assessment with respect to the vulnerabilities which has been released. Then we will be analyzing the risk. Then at the time also, we are not going to decide if my operational need is more than risk. If it say yes, then obviously you are not going to do the patch. Example, say like we cannot, there is a chance that we have to go for a shutdown window. Then at the time we are completely going to bypass this and saying that we are not going to patch it because the operational need is more than the risk. Then again the same thing, you have to routine the schedule patch, then document the patch, then continue the operation. This is the cycle which is going to happen back and forth, because whenever we are going to talk about patching on the ICS, this is the starting point, and you have to see a complete cycle as well, because whether it is affected or what we are going to do, whether you do risk assessment and what are the paths you are going to follow. Can you go to next slide, John? Yeah, this is the actually it is a description of whatever the patch decision tree which we are talking about. The asset owner should determine whether it has affects any ICS in the operation. If it does affect one or more system, then the workaround is whether it was provided or not. Because the flowchart explains very clearly. Same thing we had put it up in a description so that when people get the presentation, they will be able to get all kind of information. That is the intent of putting the description for those patch decision tree. John, you can move to next page. Yeah, this is the slide which we are talking about the patch management, like because the Prashanth AC covered, because there are same kind of scenarios which we are talking about, because every standard has its own things. And first thing is whether we have the backups in place. Like example, if you decided you want to do a patch management in place, then these are the areas which we are going to concentrate. Whether we have a patch backup is in place, whether the backup integrity has been tested on a quarterly basis or half-yearly basis. It's based on your requirement. And then you test the patch on the test bed, whether it is real, because most of the cases, the problem what happens is test bed, because you will try to do the test on the test bed, and when you put it in a real scenario, it might be different. It may fail as well, because the case is when you are putting the test bed might not have the exact replicated scenario of the site. That's what we discussed before also. Then we try to deploy always, if it is a redundant system, then you will be deploy the patches on the backup, and then wait for some time, because the procedure will say very clearly you have to wait for some time. Then you do a swap over from backup to primary, and then you have to check from the system operational test functionality, because sometimes it will not immediately say there is a failure, because when the communication starts, like example, you will have multiple communication which will happen on the system. Then if you check if there is a fail, then again you have to go back. You cannot proceed further. You have to go back and you have to see whether bring back the backup system to the primary. Then you try for all restore options, and your incident, maybe you can say that incident response, your plan will come. So you will be doing the recovery of the images and all those things. If the functionality and example say like you keep the system whichever is patched for some time, like maybe consider a week, and you find everything was working as intended, then you will be moving to the next, like swap into the production. Then you update the backup as well, and then you will be doing the continue operation. This is like a flowchart which will be used for your complete patch management process. We have in-depth sequence, like SOPs are in place. John, can you go to next page? Yeah, this is the same, like you always create a backup, archive and verify its integrity before by deploying it on a standby system, and create a checklist procedure for patch activities and patch, because this checklist and procedure is very much critical, because you have to follow the standard operating procedure SOP, whether if you are doing a patch for quite some long time as well, because we had seen several scenarios where we had a failure and then we don't have a backups in place. And then the problem is altogether it is going to be different. Like then we had faced, we have to restore the image of 2-3 months back, and where we had a lot of issues, because there are so many things which has been changed, because which we are talking about this ICS system. There might be a logic change, there might be a parameters change, and all those things are in place. And also closely monitor the patched production system for any issue not identified during testing, and also patch the standby system. After confidence is established with the production unit, then you move further with the primary systems. And also always maintain the record. This is very, very important when we talk about the patch management, as rightly said by Prashanth. When you are having the asset management in place, parallelly you are going to have all kind of information with respect to the patching as well in place. Like example, what is the patch has been updated, and what is the missing patch, when we did the patch, whether the backup is available. All the information has to be populated for the records as well. Yeah. John, can you go to next page? Like there are some like NVD websites where you can go and search for any vulnerabilities, because all the vulnerabilities which has been released with respect to vendor details also available in those areas. Like example, if you go and search for anything, like example, if it is a safety system, like you put a Triton malware, then you enter, then you will be able to see the complete information, like with respect to Triton malware, what are the things and how it can be exploited, and all those informations are available, and what is the CV ranking and how much impact it has, whether it is a critical, medium or low. All those informations are available in the NVD database. These will be a good reference for you guys to go and have a look to understand what is the vulnerabilities risk ranking which was involved. And this is the takeaway and recommendation. Like patching is one of our primary defense on each endpoint, and never ever expected that we will do patch 100% of the systems, because due diligence is always required. Document each missing patch, whether we will be able to do the patching or not. Then in some cases, because always don't think that you want to start from level 0, level 1, level 2, because as we all know, because those are the maybe you can say very critical places which we cannot do much, then always think that you can do the patching in level 3 compared to below the systems. And recommendation to owners and operators, always you have the metrics in place, generate the metrics of the system, devices, software, whatever has been installed, because so many softwares are installed on the system where we don't have any track. Like example, there might be some places where they had Wireshark and all those things which are not supposed to be installed. Maybe during commissioning they want to install, just they installed and they left as it is. Achieve the ability to generate a missing patch report for ICS, because you should be in a position at any point of a time where you can see where you are standing with respect to patching. And recommendation to vendors, always provide solutions to gather patch statistics of all your products, because there should be some mechanism. Example, if the vendor is coming, if he is having some kind of a tools where he can run from sitting in one places for a particular plant, he should be able to get all the details with respect to the vendors who had supplied the project. Like example, he should be able to fetch the information with respect to controller. He should be able to get the information from the PLCs. He should be able to get the information from the switches, routers, firewalls, whatever they were supplied. They should be able to get the patch statistics of all their products they supplied. Always create advisories for customers and portal to accept the reports, because most of the time the problem what happens is they release the advisories, but it doesn't reach the customers on time. Sometimes maybe after 6 months, customer came to know that, because these are the scenarios which we had faced. Because just for give you an example, one time there was a problem, the controllers keep on crashing, and the advisory was released 6 months back. These are the serial numbers which was affected, but the information was not passed to customer. Then once you report back, then at the time the advisory has been shared with customer. So please, the vendors has to always create advisories and share with customers, saying that what is the problem and what is the root cause and what is the outcome they are going to do. That's all from my side, and thank you everyone.
Thank you very much, Shankar.
Can we have your video?
Maybe can I add one more point? Yeah. So basically, I just forgot to mention that what is this patch management? How we should take this up to establish a program. Two things. One is, if you have a patch management already, then it's less headache. I would say that it is fine tuning. But if you don't have a patch management, then it's a big mess. Then how we should take it up? Basically, in my own experience, it is a top-down and bottom-up approach both together. This is what I wanted to highlight in this point. I forgot this in my previous talk. When you say top-down or bottom-up approach, as in charge of OT cybersecurity program, you really need to talk to other programs or other task force which are going on. For example, see, patch management, in my opinion, is a luxury. Yeah, when I say it's a luxury, which means you cannot patch 0 day. Yeah, you cannot patch 0 day because even the vendor doesn't know about it, but the black market knows about it. And if somebody really want to target you in terms of, if you're a very huge revenue generating company or a product based company, then definitely you are a very good milking cow, and that's where a ransomware will really work there. They don't want to lose the data. If they lose the data and GDPR impact happens, then they will end up paying millions. So if you quote your ransom 1 million less than that, they're happy to pay. In that aspect, I would say that, in my opinion. So in this way, you need to. So it's a luxury, yeah. So there is no patch for 0 days. So what is the strategy there? It's a 0 day risk management strategy. So if something happened like 0 day and real time, like Log4j happens, or if I take the example of, if any of you guys remember MS17010 WannaCry, if I remember that number correctly, MS17010, it was based on MS08067, which was a very famous Windows XP exploit. When you start learning hacking, is the first exploit. You generally, click metasploit, and it's 0806. So after 08, that is 2008, in 2017, this was reworked and re-engineered and released. When it was released, WannaCry was not there, but vulnerability was released. Okay, there is a vulnerability and there is a patch released. So reverse engineering was done, and then WannaCry was released. So, and it was reported that it was already, people already started exploiting much before that. So there is a 0 day. So you need to have a 0 day patching, 0 day risk management in your availability, with you available. Now, when I say other task force, vulnerability management, risk management, asset inventory, risk assessment at the floor, as well as how your organization is organized is also important. If it is hub and spoke model, for example, risk management at the global, that is group, or and risk management at the floors or factories combined need to have. It's a complex process. Again, I would say that. Good example is substation. If your substation is having 120 substation, your electricity grids, or electrical supply company is having 120 substations, and there is a headquarters somewhere, and it is geographically distributed substations, then you need to have a risk assessment individually on the substation, and then you need to have a combined. You need to have a criticality assessment. Of course, all, as Daniel mentioned very correctly, all PLCs cannot be crown jewels, so you need to have a criticality assessment. So more of the euros and more of the effort will go towards those critical systems, from where either you affect the environment or business or country's security. This is from the bottom up. Top down is your task force and how you stitch yourself together with other programs, and that's where you need to stitch together that. And one more important thing is automation. This is a very important problem which I'm facing, because if you have an Excel sheet and all your vulnerabilities, and then there's a patch, and then you furnish in email, then the person will be manual, and manual is always erroneous, skipping, or neglecting. You need to have something automated, like tools like ServiceNow or something, where your risk management, finally everything is going to risk management program, and that's where you try to drive everything. So it should be part of a bigger engine where you drive all these things. So it's a program management perspective. I'm telling how you have to handle this process altogether. And if it is a multinational company or geographically distributed company, this has to be really taken care and stitched well. Once it is established, I would say that it should not be a problem. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Mr. Daniel, can we have your video?
Yes.
And Mr. Shankar, can we have your video as well?
Yeah, sure.
I would like to add here a little bit to repeat what I said in my presentation, that more important is to have a layered defense. More important, because remember, a patching is possible maybe twice a year. Only when you have the time and resources to perform all the inspections, to make sure that you don't have any problem, to make sure that you don't create any homemade risk. So I would pay more attention to other defense measures than to patch management.
Yeah, just I would like to add upon one few things. Like example, when we are talking about the patch, like the real scenario which we had in our plant is we were going for a few security solutions in place. Example, say like we are going for implementing an IDS in our plant. So at the time, we want to do before we want to go for implementing the IDS. We want to see whether all our network devices are capable of handling it. Like example, whether it has the no errors, because we don't want anything to end up something adding into the systems. So at the time when we did the assessment, then we noticed that one of the network devices, which is always reporting the memory consumption was greater than 85-90%. Then we were a little bit worried because we don't see, because all the other plants are same scenarios. We don't see any issues with respect to traffic flow and all those things. Then actually we raised a case with the supplier, like the OEMs, as well as parallelly we established a case with Cisco, because it was showing more than 90%. We are really worried about not implementing the IDS. We are really worried about the availability of the plant because it gives wrong information about 90% of the traffic. Then at the time, the security advisory, the Cisco came back with the security advisory saying that we released a patches like 2-3 years back because there was a memory leak which has been observed on those firmwares which are running. Then they told you have to go for upgrading the iOS. Then only you should be able to do what, because then only you should be able to go ahead with, because we are worried about, even though we know it is kind of a false positive which gives a memory leak. Because of the memory leak, it was showing greater than 90%. This was the one of the real time scenario which we came across, because we want to go ahead for XYZ reason, we want to implement the solutions. At the same time, we hit some issues, and then we went ahead, because at the time we have to take a call, because we want to implement the solutions because the order has been given already. So the only option from the OEM as well as from the Cisco, we have to go for upgrading the iOS. Good thing is like we have redundant network devices are in place. So there is like kind of a risk which we have to take, because even though it is redundant, always the question comes when I am doing on the backup, in case worst case scenario, if the primary goes down or the UPS, anything goes down, what is going to happen? But it was taken a call. We did a risk assessment and we had a spare switch configuration, everything in place. Then we don't have option. We have to go for upgrading the iOS for implementing the solution as well. This was a real-time scenario which we had faced.
I would say that the second part of the question I would not like to answer. There are many, but yeah, I don't want to wash dirty linen in public, so I would like to avoid that. The first part, how critical is patch management to OT security? I would not say that it is. I would not take critical position on that. I would say that. Yeah, I completely agree with Daniel that it is. It cannot work in isolation. It cannot work as a priority number one or critical. It is important, yes, provided all other your requirements which are critical are met in terms of functionality, testing proven, the sufficiency of budget, manpower, everything is done. Then of course your patch management is also a very important aspect. You can just append that, provided, as you mentioned, the patch is available, but it is not communicated by OE. Now you come to know from the third, let us say LinkedIn or Twitter, and then you're asking OEM, hey, this has been discovered in your product and disclosed in your product. Do you have something? Then you would have, he would answer that yes, I actually released a patch 15 days back. Then you will ask, why didn't I got informed? But there is nothing in their contract or in your contract which is binding them to. Yeah. So that there are many other aspects also which are working in which has to be in collaboration with each other to make this patch management program a successful or acceptable program, I would say that. So in that aspect, it is important. It is very important, I would say that, but it is not critical. The other aspects like defense in depth, segregation of networks, IT, OT, whatever it is. So it has to be critical, I would say that. Yeah.
I want to add something that even if we say that patching is critical, okay, now can you really deploy that? We all know that you will never deploy patching on a live system. It means that you must stop the operation for safety purposes. So let's say you go to your manager and you ask a very simple question: when can I stop our power plant or chemical plant because I want to do a patching? You will get an answer. Wait, in 2 months we will have a long holiday, weekend holiday, and we are shutting down the plant, and then maybe you can do that. I said, holiday? I'm going to do work during the holiday. Finally, the result is that we are not doing it, and we rather deploy complementing and compensating measures. Significantly simpler, it does not affect the plant, and it's effective at least as the patching. 0 days, you remember the Stuxnet was several 0 days, but how many times it happened? I give a short answer. My previous comment refers to this question. Done.
It was a smart answer, Daniel. Okay, so I would say that the challenges. For me, the big challenge is recognizing a patch management program by an organization and how it has to be established in a program, as a program. Yeah, roles and responsibilities starts from very beginning of the. As I told you, right? I explained that it has to be from the both angles, from the top bottom approach as well as bottom up approach. Both angles need to be taken together. It has to be parallel action. This is one part of the puzzle. The second part of the puzzle is how best you are maintaining a professional and business and contractual relationship with your OEM or supplier. How fast he is able to respond to you. Is there a phone number? Is there a person who is going to pick up the call at night at 2 o'clock if something is blinking red or something has caused a massive fire or something or some leaks? So how you are going to address this? It's a part of the incident management, maybe, or it's a part of a disclosure and then compliance, for the regulatory requirements. So how is they going to respond? That's also the second part of the program. The third important part of the puzzle is the people you trust that they will apply the patch in this time and this during shutdown time or maintenance time is really taken care, because they will take the request, okay fine, we will do it, but they are themselves are so indulged in their maintenance that that period is less for them for their own maintenance time. And your patch management or your patch application of your patch or deployment of patch comes at the very last priority, if they meet their whole maintenance program in their maintenance schedule. So so it also depends that how busy they're occupied, and then they tell that, okay, sorry, we could not do it because we fell short for our maintenance time. So your awareness of your people, training of your people, facilitating them how the patch should apply and how it should be deployed. Yeah, they should not be searching the options. So there should be some kind of a help from the OT security team that yes, this is how, and helping them. Of course, they are the experts of that that PLC or this one. But if they need any help, so there should be a assistance. So I think these are some of the part of the puzzles which need to be handled. These are the unique challenges which I have faced. And yeah, how can these be addressed? I mentioned the solution also. Yeah.
Nothing much because, like as Prashanth said, we should have a dedicated patch management team and program in place because that's what we follow. Because as a real-time example, we know it is a pain, but we have a separately dedicated team who takes care of only the patch management. Their job itself, it's like a patch management only. They are doing only the patch management. We have very well organized program, maybe because there will be some debate comes whether it is really required and all those things, but from the organization perspective it was taken a call that because we are not doing patch, like example patch has been released, we are not doing immediately the next day, but we had made some programs in place. Like example, the patch is getting released, we have a 30 days time. We generally used to wait for 30 days. Like example, if it is released on February, then we might be doing after a month. At the same time, we are making sure that all the things are in place, like backups are in place, team is in place, whether they, because plant availability is the first, because everybody, if any corrective maintenance has to be done, everybody will rush on that. We know also. So resources has to be planned because resources is the main part when we talk about the patch management, because the documentation also plays a major role. So this is like cycle. They will be doing the patch, then again, it is like a cycle. Always they will be doing the patches only, but at the same time, they have to maintain the documentation and they have to do the risk analysis because we have a written, very well written procedure, what has to be done at what time and what needs to be taken care in case if they are stuck. We have a support because we have almost, we can say we had partnered with almost all the vendors. We have like 70-80% we have, like 20% we are like still working on it to improve the plans, but we have a partner with them as well. So in case of anything required, we used to call them, we can mail them, we will be getting the record support as well.
I would say that perhaps the best idea would be to decide about the time. Look at your calendar 1 year ahead, make a decision about two holidays or time periods when you are going to do the patching. And unless something critical happens, follow this process, have 2 dates in a year, twice a year, and then do the preparations. As Shankar said, you have a process. So why don't everybody have a process for patching? And you know that the next patching will be 15th of July, then work on it. Until then, just deploy complementing and compensating measures to minimize the risks which might be created as a result of a known vulnerability.
Yeah.
I don't know, nothing from my side.
So majority of the IDS solutions from different vendors which are available on the market, they are performing asset inventory analysis, meaning that if you have an IDS from vendor XYZ, I don't want to promote any of them, they give you a list, gives you the hardware and software version, and then you need to learn about what are the recent patches deployed by the vendors, and then act accordingly. But as I said again, and I consistently want to say that if it's not urgent, don't take any panic action. That's what is making the difference between us and the IT people. IT people wake up every week, 5 o'clock in the morning, to conduct the patching. No, we will conduct testing and only then. So I'm very consistent about that statement, that urgent patching might create more trouble than benefit.
I think this is just for me, it's a wish list. Yeah, it's just a wish for me that I ensure that all devices and systems in my OPD environment are up to date with the latest patches. Really an ideal situation, I would say that. Critical systems, yes, I can apply these rules, but non-critical systems, again, I see that how my vulnerability mitigation strategy applies there, and what is the kind of time I have to give to my operators at the factory floor. Are there any tools or strategies? See, tools will not work here. I'll tell you, tools are facilities. Yeah? Tools are the luxury. It's like a weapon in your strategy to handle a war. So it is a journey. So you need to have a very strong strategy. As I mentioned in the whole discussion, that you need to have various parts of the engine working together. Then you have the correct platform to launch your patch management program. Yeah, you need to know your critical systems, associated vulnerabilities, then associated patches, communication. Then there is an automated system of vulnerability management. Then issuing your orders for the patch management, I would say that. So it is not a tool-based approach. Should be tools are really important. They are weapons, but how to deploy these weapons is also strategy. How it should be. Yeah, which one is the first one and how much. So yeah, these are my 2 cents.
I would like to say that we need to take a brave action. We should deal with vendors who comply with paragraph 4.1 and 4.2 of 62443, because these requirements are so basic, so important. They deal with security design, they deal with the life cycle management, and it means that the patching recommendation will be automatically included in this requirement. Just comply 4.1 and 4.2 and I will sleep happy.
For me, I would say that, see, vendors are very keen to address this issue because I was part of this vendor and I was part of a product which is getting sold to energy customers, and we were very keen to push our patch to last mile without the intervention of vendor, which is like a secure pipeline, which is like a sign. You can think of level 3, a security level 3 or capability. But here, that's what it comes at a huge cost to vendors. So many of the vendors may not be afford this one. There is out of band type of communication of the patches, and the organizations, from the asset owner perspective, what they can definitely do is they can put in the contract, put as a contractual obligations. Yeah, if there's a vulnerability, there is a disclosure time. Let us say 24 hours for critical vulnerability. If they don't, then you have to pay a fine of 2 million. Fine. And then from then onwards, you take 1 week and inform us when will you able to provide us a patch. Let us say 3 months. Okay, fine. And then the vendor has to inform them then what can be a compensatory control for their system or product. So this is the complete life cycle, I would say, that between the vendor as well as asset owner. And when the vendor mentions the compensatory controls, and that's where the ball shifts to the responsibility of asset owner. He has to apply this compensatory control so that the penalty clause will not apply on vendors. And then after 3 months, the patch is released and the communication should happen as we discussed. It should, in idealistic way, and then the cycle will repeat for the next vulnerability.
Well, I tell you, I have seen a water company in Canada in a very rich village, 40 years old RTU, 40 years. And for sure, nobody's asking about patching and any kind of process for this system. I think that you should have a plan. What you are doing twice a year and what you are doing once a year. And twice a year you do patching, once a year you discuss which component should be replaced. But please make a decision 3 months ahead because you have to plan it. Otherwise, I don't think it's practical to think about it. Always have a plan because you know how old is your PLC. If your PLC is already 10 years old, it's still young, but at least have a plan. Yes, next year, year after, we are going to replace it.
Yeah, for me, I would say that I will take the example, classic example of Windows XP. Yeah, it's a worst case, worse than PLC. PLCs generally are microcontrollers, and now we are talking about a full-fledged operating system with lots of publicly available working exploits on Windows XP. So whatever the strategies your organization have for Windows XP, you can learn from that strategy and weave around it, of course, because Windows XP will be one of your OT environment system. If it is there, then you can learn and tweak that strategy to apply for that particular subnet or particular process control network of your legacy devices. Among them, amongst that strategy, I would say that have a plan for upgrading or Industry 4.0 kind of strategy where you try to migrate it to more advanced, provided that you have a budget as well as management vision for Industry 4.0. I would say that. So you can think of this from some of the strategies. I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, always better to have like a 5 years plan. Like you should have in place like what you are going to do for the next 5 years. So like example, it might be from your base control systems till whatever the level which we are talking about. Always have a 5-year plan, and you should, because the management also will not approve immediately, say that yeah, go ahead, all the plans you upgrade all of a sudden. So we should have a budgetary and also plan for a long-term vision as well, so that it would be better to come up with the mostly the absolute systems can be upgraded, because that's what we had, because almost our plans are running with all Windows 7, Windows XP for quite some time. Even though we know it's vulnerable and all those things, the management also will help us to do in a certain manner only. So we went with plan by plan, and we did now, like we were able to achieve now zero system with running with Windows XP or Windows 7. But it's a like a long journey for us when we did it, because we took almost 3-4 years to come to that stage. It's not like one day we decided, we came next day with all absolute system has been winded up. Yeah.
I think this is the difficult question, because I believe it is difficult to measure the effectiveness of patch management, because maybe if I never do any patching, I just worry about segregation from the internet, I just worry about training of people, I just worry about the correct operation, maybe it's better. So I don't want to measure the effectiveness of patch management. I think it's maybe some theoretical formula.
For me, I would say that it is a part of your OT cybersecurity strategy. When you say strategy, there are plans inside the strategy, and every plan has to have a KPI. Yeah, you need to have a KPI for this also, in my own perspective. Uh, and I'm doing this in my present organization. So the effectiveness of patch management program, as I mentioned, it is a patch management program is a program based on the other foundation which I have already discussed. Yeah. Basically, how faster your vulnerability is discovered on the mature inventory management system in an automated way, how that vulnerability has been processed for your vulnerability management. Yeah, how do you want to manage that vulnerability for mitigation? Based on that, how quickly your suppliers are reacting to your request, or they are proactively providing you the information, and then the patch availability, and then the whole cycle of your patch management process, which I described in my PPT. That so of course there is not a hard line. I would say that for every for as a common hard line or a common framework for applicable to all organizations. In OT specifically, you need to have your framework, you need to have your timeline boxes maybe, and then if the ball is inside that box for the whole processes and all the parts of the engine is running fine, I think the KPIs are meeting there. So all these small things which I mentioned can be a part of the KPI. If there is a delay, if there is a miscommunication, if there is somebody dropping the ball, yes, that's exactly what the red line is. And that's where you need to find out the root cause. You can do a root cause analysis and then fine tune a process, strategy, policy, whatever it is. Then you can mention that. So this is what I was thinking about it.
I give here a brave suggestion. I think from time to time, look at your system architecture. Just look at it on the blueprint and ask yourself question, is there a place where I can deploy a data diode which will provide strong segregation? Okay. And maybe that just by deploying a data diode, meaning preventing a flow access from an external side, you so much increase the cybersecurity posture that you will be less worried that a malware will exploit a known vulnerability. I said, look at it. I think we even didn't have started to talk about another tool, deception. Today, there are deception technologies from several vendors that perhaps you can catch. You can put a mechanism at the entrance to the system. So just as the attacker is approaching, he will be redirected to be captured in a secured place. I would definitely look at it at least once a year.
So for me, I would say that it's when I say overall OT security strategy is a very big animal for me, and patch management I can compare as a tail of the animal. So it is I cannot see just in isolation. As I mentioned again and again, my whole theme was based on this question only, that you need to have a holistic vision on how you're driving your strategy program. Yeah? So, and then that's where you will automatically, when you take 62443 for example, and you start driving your cybersecurity program as per 2-1, automatically it will 2-3 will come into picture. and you will automatically know that where I can fit. Now the tweaking should happen, that roles and responsibilities, people, hiring, budget, tools, techniques, processes. So you name it. So many of the things will start falling into the places. Of course, then you need to stitch together, and that's where it will. So it's a part of your. When you have OT security strategy, I would say that it becomes a part of it. It cannot be exclusively bought in separately as a program, I would say. So second part of the question, are there any security controls or practices that should be implemented in conjunction with the patch management? Of course, yes, patch management is not an isolation. Tail cannot just exist as a tail. It's a part of an animal. So you need to have an animal to have a tail of the animal. So of course, it is to be.
Yeah, apart from that, like we have a defense in depth when we talk about that should be in place, like the network segmentation, and you have IDs in place, conduit zones, because so many things are there. It's not about only the patch management. It might be like it's one of the thing we can say, but it is not only the things which we are talking about for the patch management, because there are so many things. Security control should be in place.
I believe that there is a minor problem that we need to look at it. When the vendor is issuing a patch, he is looking at his own product. He detects the vulnerabilities and look at his own product. However, our main concern is our system architecture. Who programmed the PLC? Who programmed it? Was the PLC programmed correctly? I believe it is significantly more important. And those of you who remember the attack on the Oldsmar facility in Florida, what happened there? There was no vulnerability. It was a stupid design by the integrator who did not include the input validation. And he almost killed half of the village by the chemical material. So I say patch management is nice, but look at many things around and make sure that your industrial control system is operating safely and reliable. Far more important, okay, far more important. Make sure I don't know how many of you know is aware of the 20 best practices for PLC programming. It is a genius document, guiding you to so many important things that I would pay significantly more attention to that in my program of how do I manage my system.
So to add on to Daniel, I would say that there's a lot of R&D which is going on from the vendor's perspective. Specifically, if you take an example of edge solutions, definitely there is a lot of claim from vendors of secure transportation of this update packages, to edge devices, and then onwards to the devices which are connected to the edge. Even on-prem, they are trying to do something like that. I would say that there's a very interesting development which is happening in this aspect. Cloud is playing a major role, as far as I know. Blockchains are also being talked upon, and then a lot of R&D is going on in this aspect. Not sure how AI is going to contribute. I'm not sure about it. I have not done any research or not came across. But yeah, I would say that there's a lot of interesting developments which are happening to look forward for. But the only challenge is whether the industry is ready for that advancement, because even you can have a state-of-the-art quantum, kind of update mechanism, but my production facility, which is running a CNC, sorry, I cannot use that technology. So I believe there is a lack from the invested vendor asset owners who are struggling with Industry 4.0 for the basic capabilities. So advancement is really nice to have feature, maybe in coming years, not now.
You know, you raised the 4.0. I want to tell you that I'm concerned about it because the 4.0 require adding of many IIoT devices. And
Yes.
I can tell you that from the publication, 80% of the projects do not deliver the benefit, but 100% of the projects increase the attack surface. So those who are pushing us to the 4.0, is it good? But remember, you increase the cyber attack surface. And if you are not prepared to deploy complementing and compensating measures, maybe this 4.0 will come against you and trouble is on the way.
Of course, I agree with you. I agree with you. I can just quickly tell that see, I am adapting that for the document, not fully, because I'm more. Some of the parts of the documents are not useful to me. For example, vulnerability sharing formats, XML formats. They are not useful to me because I don't have any facility with my suppliers for that kind of automated system of communication. That I get an XML and then I upload the XML and everything start running automatically. So I don't have that. I will not use it. But of course, the other suggestions, which are the other part of the documentation, I would say that which contains a lot of information about it, what we have discussed today, are really relevant. They are relevant to fine tune your perspective, how to patch how to see a patch management in an OT environment, 2-3, for example, and how to see it from the deployment perspective. What are the challenges you might face? Okay, how to address those challenges. There's a very good depiction of that in that document. It's just how much, 67 odd pages document, and it's a very beautiful document. It's a must read for anybody who is trying to do something on patch management in OT environment, I would say.
Yes, actually, it was my question, and I can tell you that when I hear, and it was mentioned by Shankar, that you do patching every 30 days, I'm a bit concerned, and I want to say that safety and reliability is a highly critical requirement, and if you are not comfortable that you completely performed all the inspection, the safety issue will not appear. Nothing is wrong about if you defer the patching process, not 30 days, maybe 45 days, maybe 60 days. I would prefer to do that if you are not sure that safety is assured.
Daniel, I agree on that point because as we are talking about the patch management is not a straightforward process because it involves a lot of things in the background, like the criticality of the equipment, what the equipment does actually really with respect to plant. Because when we talk about, like, I touch based on instead of doing it on level 2 and below, because there are some strategies which we follow. Also, you start with level 3. Maybe sometimes we start with a very like example, the cybersecurity solution servers to patch it first because if there is going to be, as we know, it will not give a straightforward answer whether it is going to affect the OT environment or not. But always the criticality of the equipment and the criticality of the patches plays a major role. And as I mentioned, the flowchart, as you can see, we are identifying the vulnerabilities. Then we are debating whether it is really applicable for ICS. Then we are checking about whether it has to be really patched, or my operation requirement is more. Then obviously we are not going to patch it because we are going to defer it or we are going to delay it because there are so many things are in place. It's not like straightforward you have to do every time 30 days, 30 days, because we had come across several scenarios. Say, for example, so many of you are aware about the OPC protocols where the DCOM plays a major role for communicating it. But Microsoft several times they had released it is a vulnerability and no more hereafter. You will not be able to have the DCOM communication in place until you go and modify certain registry in place, right? Example, in those kind of scenarios, we take back and we waited for some time, and we had applied it on a very due diligence on few areas and to see whether really the communications are working in place. So it's like kind of a debate which used to happen always, but at the same time, it's like a due diligence as well as the patch management team and how your teams are. Because as Prashanth told, the patch management, because you see in our site, frankly speaking, the Windows load itself, we might be having 700 plus. So you think about the Windows nodes which are 700 plus, how we are managing it. Because in case if miss happen, then we all will be in trouble. Like the complete team, the production team, operation, everybody will be in trouble. So we should have a, I would say you should have a perfect patch management plan in place. And also you have to be due diligence as well. It's not like simply you take the CD, go deploy. You cannot do that.
Yes, I agree. You know, all the requirements of Microsoft about the severe vulnerabilities are referring to systems which are IT system consistently open to the internet. And I tell you, I'm a little bit worried that we didn't mention something during this discussion. How many of you tested with the Shodan IO tool if your system is not visible from the internet? Because if your system is visible on the Shodan, hey, forget about patching. You are such a big problem.
That is altogether different, Daniel. If your systems are in Shodan, then forget about everything, whatever maybe you are talking about. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I think I already talk enough.
Yeah, I don't want to comment on that because, yeah, practically I have not done, I have not experienced.
I think that the entire discussion about virtual patching and all these things is it's a nice discussion, but if we are speaking about the incorrectly designed SCADA architectures and incorrectly programmed PLCs, I would be more worried than about virtual patching.
Yeah, of course, that's what vulnerability management programs comes into picture. Yeah, before patch management program kicks in, there is the whole issue has to be churned into vulnerability management. Then your vulnerability mitigation strategy will come into picture. Then if the vulnerability falls into the strategy of patching, and if the patch is available, then your patch management system will kicks in. So prioritizing your CVEs depending on the criticality, your environmental score, base score, everything should be a part of your vulnerability management program. That's why I told that so several programs have to work in conjunction with each other. It cannot be an isolation.
When we are speaking about the CVEs, there was a funny picture on the internet. I don't know if you saw it with some ships. Each one had a CVE number on it. But anyway, I want to say something. When I see a vulnerability disclosure, my first question is, what is the impact on operating safety and reliability? And then I decide on priority. I cannot decide on priority based on the finding of the CV because this is product related. I'm more worried about architecture related, about operating, about how it is applicable for my plant. Because if you have a simple PLC doing, I don't know, measuring the wind on the roof, well, I'm not so worried that it has a vulnerability. However, if I have a PLC which is operating the combustion plant or a boiler, I will be more worried. So CVE means nothing to me. I want to translate the CVE to the risk to the business impact analysis, BIA.
Just to add on to that, when you say CVC, your risk management or vulnerability management program will automatically take care of this one. Something called aggregated risk or aggregated chaining, not aggregate chaining of vulnerabilities. Basically, you combine a lot of medium and then you try to achieve a critical hack out of it. So if I take a critical hack, as I said, if you're a target of a geopolitical controversy, yeah, then there is a chance that a chaining of vulnerabilities of medium, which generally goes under your radar of patching, will be achieved without affecting your operations. That means there is an adversary sitting in your network. Yeah. Now the operations will be impacted during the conflict, or the trigger time will come at the very peak of, let us say, tripping your electricity grids in a conflict between country to country. But for that, that is a trigger at that time doesn't mean that the operator is not sitting, the adversary is not sitting in your network. And how that has happened is because of chaining of vulnerability. So all these scenarios, all this risk has to be taken care, and then you should see that. Very important aspect from the asset owner perspective, you should not just care of base score, you should always also care of environmental score. You should so in CVSS you see environmental score also, so you need to adjust the base score so it can increase or decrease your scoring. So medium base score can become critical, or critical can become medium, depending on how best your defense in depth architecture is. So some points like this. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
I think this is a complex question, and I think that and this would also summarize what I said previously. I recommend that in your organization you have a patch management team which include all the IT people, the process people, the cybersecurity people, and make them and have them discuss every action before you do that, and then you less worry about what Microsoft is telling you or what is published in the website, because there is a lot of pressure created by people who write posts, by articles, lot of pressure. And I recommend you to follow a dear expert, Ralph Langer, if you know him, Ralph Langer, and he is the most brave person in the OT cybersecurity arena, even more brave than me. So listen to what he says, and about a lot of pressures that are created over the internet about vulnerabilities and about cyber attacks.
Because the most of the times what happens is it happens because even though the OEM vendors say that the patches has been tested and released to customer, because as I mentioned in my slide also, they cannot replicate your environment because your environment is totally different than what they are testing it. Maybe you might have so many third parties are in place, OPC communications are in place, and all those things. Because once you put, there is a cases where we have to roll back because it is really required. Like as I was saying regarding the DCOM settings, which has as part of vulnerability, it has been detected as a high. Then we had, because the vendor has addressed only their products and other things, but the systems are interconnected because the cybersecurity solutions might be from different vendors, or because the cybersecurity solutions might be purchased from various OEMs as well. So there are possibilities. Always it happens that even though they tested, you should have a plan, like you should have SOPs are in place. What is your plan in case if it goes bad? Whether you are doing it on a redundant systems, whether you are doing it on the backup, whether once you bring it to the primary, you are facing the problem. How immediately you are switching back to the older systems, or you can example in case if it is a VM, you are going back to the snapshots and all those things. So you should have a proper plan in place when we talk about the patch management, because nothing, you cannot say that it is a perfectly it will work. It is not at all possible in the patch management system in place. Yeah, I will explain quick things what we are doing right now. Example, consider that all the systems, like when we talk about when we purchased itself, you are not purchasing a non-redundant system, because when you do PHA, process hazard analysis, you are very well defined that you are not depending only on a single system, non-redundant system. It is a redundant system when you are purchasing. As well the operator stations, when we talk about, I am not talking about level 1 and below, I am talking about level 2 and above. Okay, most of the times you have operator systems is not a single operator station. Multiple operator stations are in place. As I mentioned, redundant systems are in place. So when we are doing patching, we are not going to do patching on all 4 systems, right? Example, if it is a consider like I have 5 operator stations, you start with the single operator stations and you wait for 5 days, because there are so many things to be considered. You wait for 5 days and operations are working on those operator stations 24/7. In case if other systems are behaving properly and this system is not behaving properly, they will notify you. And also it's like, with respect to operator sessions, always we used to have multiple things in place, like they will be able to manage the plant. Example, say like they will be able to manage the plant with 3 operator stations, but still we will be providing additional operator stations like supervisor stations, and all those things are in place. So the downtime, with respect to downtime, you always can say 90-95% of the time the downtime is less, because all we are not doing the patching on all system at same time. You should have a strategy, which strategy you are going to follow, how you are applying it as well. So that's it from my end.
I suggest everyone to refer to a beautiful picture in the 62443 standard, which shows the owner, the service provider, and the component vendor. So don't worry about it. The owner is responsible for operating safety and reliability, period. The owner is responsible. So don't look for other people to be responsible, not your contractor, not the PLC vendor, the owner, the owner. And if you want to hear one more sentence, a ISO standard 27001 2013, section 5, paragraph 1, have a very short sentence. The CEO and the board of directors are responsible for cybersecurity. The CEO and board of directors. So just remember that question, show it to your manager, show it to your CEO, and let him not sleep well when he's not giving you the budget. Thank,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Thank
Daniel,
you.
thank
And
you, Shankar, thank you, Prashant. You have made this session very wonderful, and we would like to have your individual session very soon. And thank you for your time, and your contributions to the community is commendable. and that needs a round of applause, seriously. Because when we are seeing the people who are really making their hands dirty and they are speaking, that is the different thing. They are the people who are having the bookish knowledge and they are speaking. And they are the people who are making their own hands dirty in the system and then they are sharing their experience. That is really making a difference to the community.
Thanks.
So we would request Prashanth, Shankar, and Daniel to have such more sessions with us and enlighten us.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Let's organize a 2-day school in India for all your engineers, and we will be significantly at higher level. Not only you people, you are experts. I'm worried about the hundred thousands of engineers who still need to learn.
Yeah, this is just a start. Yeah, John. Yeah, so I was just saying this is just a start. The people are coming together, they are trying to contribute to the community, and the kind of time they are putting for exchanging the knowledge, sharing the knowledge, they're diffusing the knowledge for so that people who are the learning OT security or the people who are just coming into the OT security environment, they can also understand the pain points. They can also see what are the things actually happens in the OT security domain. And when we have a people like Prashant who is doing the pen testing in the OT security, it makes a real difference to the society. The people only talk about the OT security. There are some implementation, but when someone is doing the pen testing, it makes a real difference. Prashant, we would like to have your practical session very soon. A short session,
Thank you
not
so
this.
much. Definitely, thanks for other Daniel
And
expert advice. I would say that means if we cannot compare. Yeah, definitely, we have to learn a lot from Daniel. And thanks Shankar for the expert opinions on many other things. Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Okay, bye.